Recording. Marvelous. And okay, and we're live. I can see us on Facebook. Just turning the volume down as we've been told. So there's always that bit of a time delay, isn't there? Well, Sabine is here from Cornwall, and Claire is watching. And anyway, how's things?
Good. What about you? How's your week been?
It's lovely, actually. I'm in Wales, which is I'm in the little town of Pembroke in southwest Wales, and this is where I was born and spent the first 19 years of my life. And that first 19 years wasn't particularly happy, I think. And but I pretended I was fine. And when I used to come back here, I would feel very depressed. I didn't like coming back here, and I always blamed the area for that. But actually, it was just what was in my body being triggered by the environment. And then maybe 4 or 5 years ago, for the first time, I came back, and I didn't have that feeling of depression. And I knew that something significant had shifted in me, and I fell in love with the landscape that held me when I was a child. And it's extraordinary, really. It's a very mystical place. But to be honest, any landscape is very mystical, I think. I think we're in a time now where it becomes useful for us to remember that the whole of the earth is sacred. And if it's not feeling sacred, then we can help that situation by our interaction with the landscape. That being said, some landscapes have more energy in them than others, quite naturally, I think, because of the way energy flows. And here, there are lots of castles that are all about 1,000 years old, and it's very beautiful, beautiful beaches, and there's a little range of hills 20 miles away, 30 miles away, called the Preseli Hills or the Preseli Mountains. And some of the stones from Stonehenge were taken from those hills and carried hundreds of miles across country to be a part of the Stonehenge configuration. So they recognized that there was something particular in these stones that they wanted as part of that. And they're reputed to be, they're called blue stones, and they're reputed to be, they carry sound frequency very, very well. But I was in those hills yesterday and had some very beautiful experiences and very lovely experiences. And I feel as if I'm being initiated back into the landscape. And this has been going on for a while now, a few weeks, longer than that. And 30 years ago, when I was sort of just starting and I was still drinking and drugging and my life was a mess, I came here and had an experience of being led around the countryside, being told by guides, go here, go there, go to this place, stand here. And I was singing, I was making sounds, using sound, not singing with words, just vocalizing, what we might call light language now, but it wasn't called that back then. I don't think it wasn't a thing. And I was aware, even though I was quite unaware then, but I was aware that the sound was having an impact in the land. And as I carried on, I had this really strong impression of dragons underneath me whenever I was standing in places, and came to a point, and I was literally led around lots of areas on the coastline, and then taken to a town called Tembe, a beautiful little seaside town. And everywhere I was going, I would meet dragons in stonework and in signs. And of course, the Welsh dragon is a thing, the red dragon of Wales. And I was climbing up the back of this hill on which the old castle in Tembe had been built. a PowerPoint. All of these places were PowerPoints, and singing into the energy of the land. And this was after maybe 3 days of doing this in various places around the landscape. And then all of a sudden there was this explosion underneath me that felt vast. It felt like a nuclear explosion. And I was thrown out of my body way, 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 way up high. And I was looking down on the landscape from a couple of 100 feet up high. And I saw that the whole of the landscape, there were lines of energy just lit up with this explosion. And I had no idea what had happened. But I knew that something had happened. And nothing like that has ever happened since, although I've had many interactions with the landscape. And as I say, I was drinking and drugging still back then. And so there was lots I had to do to clear up my life. And that happened, over 20 years ago. And so now I feel, yesterday I was on these beautiful hills, very cold, grey, and you can see the sea on both sides. The land runs down to the sea on both sides, and there were these very large landscape angels present who were just extending my energy field up into the heavens, and then they formed these golden balls of light and dropped them down through the central column, through the Sushumna, and they flowed down through me into the landscape. And then I was told, okay, connect with Merlin and Pan, and Merlin is very present in this landscape. There's a town 30 miles from here called Carmarthen, or Caerfyrddin in Welsh. I can't even pronounce it properly, which means the city of Merlin. Sorry?
What's it called?
Carmarthen in English, Caerfyrddin. I can't pronounce it. I can't get my tongue around it. Which means that Merlin City. And so he's very present in myth and legend and in this landscape, that energy. And my parents bought this house, this bit of land in a place called Merlin's Cross. And so he was always a part of my mythology, in a sense, my personal mythology. But I think he's part of everybody's personal mythology, because he is that archetypal magician figure. Yesterday, as I was walking across this landscape, I really felt as if it was wet and boggy and marshy, and I felt as if I was in Lord of the Rings or something with Gandalf, but I was walking with Pan and Merlin, and again stopping in various places and just connecting, and I had this beautiful merging with the landscape and an understanding that I am part of this landscape and this landscape is part of me. And it felt, in a sense, like a very deep homecoming to a part of myself. And I think, and I've been talking about this for a few weeks now, I think we are all in this place now where it is possible for us to reconnect to the land in very deep, intimate, personal ways, so that we have what we term mystical experiences with landscapes and stones and rocks and trees and nature spirits, and that it all comes alive for us. And many of us have that already, and I think that's really amplifying now. So that's been my week. When I first got here, which was last Thursday, I guess, I didn't want to be here at all. I was irritated and annoyed, and I couldn't work out what I was doing here, and or why I was here, and I had so much I should be doing at home. And then as I've settled in, and I had an email from somebody saying, oh, I was just in Wales and I had the same experience. I think there's something going on with dragon energy. She sent me that email, and that morning, as I was driving back from the beach, I looked across the landscape. I was on the top of a hill, and there in the distance were these Preseli Hills, and underneath the Preseli Hills I could see this huge sleeping dragon, and I knew it's like, oh, I'm being called this. So I went yesterday and I didn't meet the dragon, as it was, but I had a gorgeous time. It was a lovely, deeply enriching time, and so I'm doing more of that today. I'm off to that city, Merlin City, today, and there's a hill, and that is Merlin's Hill, and which is a PowerPoint again. So I'm going to wander around there and just have some fun. It's a gorgeous day here today, bright and cold. So I'll probably have a swim somewhere as well. But yeah, that's me. I've taken up a lot of time there, but it's lovely, and it's my turn to do the meditation at the end this week, and I will do some of that landscape connection. And as I say, I think we're being initiated back into a much deeper relationship with the landscape. So that's my focus, and I realize that your focus on Hieros, Gamos, and union, the union of masculine and feminine, this is my way of doing that. I'm not in partnership, in a relationship, but I am in a very deep relationship with the land, with the earth, and this is how it's happening for me at the moment. So it's lovely. It's really very beautiful. So so
Heard
that's
of a
me.
lot. I've heard of a lot of people in the last few weeks talking about finding themselves back in their hometowns
Hmm.
or where they lived 20 years ago and where they'd left, and it wasn't a very nice experience for them. And so many seem to be going back. And for me, I look at that and I think that's got to be grid work. We go away, we change, we expand, we raise our frequency, and then we go back to our origins to grid work, to pull that down into the earth. The question for you would be, so when you had that experience yesterday, did you connect in and actually talk directly to the land, communicate directly to the land? Like, what would it
But I
have to
was
say to you?
I I guess when I was in that and I was hit, there were lots of high points, so that the hills sort of rise and there are high points, and the stone is, I think it's granite, and so there's a lot of energy in the land. And I had this experience of just merging. So I lost my sense of self. I lost my boundaries and became one. I could have been one of the rocks sticking out of the land, and there wasn't any any words that I was hearing. It was just this oneness. I did have the experience of, as those landscape angels were dropping golden balls of energy through my field into the land, they said, "Oh, connect with Merlin and Pan." And then it just occurred to me afterwards that another of Merlin's incarnations is meant to be Hermes, the god Hermes. And Hermes is reputed to be Pan's father. So it made sense that I was walking with Merlin and Pan across this really boggy terrain. And I had short little Wellington boots on, and they weren't long enough to stop the water coming in. And the dog was getting stuck. He's a little dog. He was getting stuck in big boggy puddles and looking at me thinking, what the fuck is going on? And so it was quite comical in parts of this walk, but I wasn't talking. And there were places where I just knew where I needed to be. It's like, oh, that's where I need to go and sit, and I could see it, half a mile in the distance, and it's like, okay, there. And so it wasn't conscious communication, but the conscious communication was with guidance then. But it feels like this is the next phase of my focus, in a sense, is working very much more with the landscape, wherever I am, I guess. And that's lovely. And I think a lot of people really hunger for this connection with the land. And people have always said to me, oh, why don't you do sacred journeys? to various places and stuff. And I did one to Egypt with a friend last year, and I did one around London because London is an amazing sacred landscape. And it's like, oh yeah, I think I probably will at some point start doing more of that, just to help people connect deeply into the landscape. But as I said, I think we have to remember that the whole of the earth is sacred. And if the little bit that you're present on doesn't feel that, then by meditating and connecting in, maybe even in your back garden or something, you can bring energy to the surface in that place and make it a more energized space. You can bring crystals, and you can ask that the angels of the space, how could I energize this? How do I honor this space and make it a more energetically rich and abundant place? And the land will tell you, it will, and that's it's the same as if we sit in the same place day after day and meditate in that place. That place becomes a PowerPoint for us because the energy holds, and it enables us to drop into our meditation more and more deeply because the energy is there. And we can do the same in a landscape. And of course, some places are PowerPoints, like the chakra system of the earth. There are points we all know where a lot of energy comes to the surface, and it's easy in those places because they transport you into other dimensions. They are portal places. But yeah, it's. And on another note, just to digress a little bit, and then I'll give you a chance to speak. A few weeks ago, and Israel has kept coming up. We talked a bit about it a while ago, and it's kept coming up in my awareness. And I was meditating, thinking, is there something I should do about this? Something I should focus on, or something I should pray for, or whatever? And I was told, so the earth in this region is a place of ancient conflict, ancient, going way back beyond a history that we have recorded. And so a lot of that tension in the landscape is coming to the surface. You could help the whole situation by focusing on the earth. So oh, okay. There's another little group that I connect with once a month, and we meditate for the planet or whatever. And the person who focuses that group said, oh, well, Israel has been on my mind, but specifically the land in that area. And so I said what I had experienced, and somebody else said something along the same lines. And so we meditated on the land, and I was drawn deep into the land and felt a lot of very dense, very what you might call dark energy. And all of a sudden, I was standing next to what looked like a fireman's hose with a huge gushing outflow of really dirty, murky energy. And I looked at it, thought, oh, what am I seeing here then? And as I watched, I understood that this was a portal deep in the earth that had been opened ages and ages ago, that literally drew energy from the lower astral realm and poured it through the earth there, opened underneath the land that is Israel, Palestine. And I was watching this, and I asked, so what needs to happen with this? What does it need to be closed or whatever? And I understood, yes, it needs to be closed. And so I asked for that. I didn't do anything. I just said, well, can this be closed? And then it was. And so I think that's a useful thing for us to focus on in any area of conflict, is the land. Because if we support the land, we automatically support all of the people on the land without having a bias towards one or another, one group or another. We just support the land, and the land supports everybody because it does, it does so unconditionally. And so that was an interesting experience.
Very interesting. I'm
Yeah.
opposite. I do all of my work and spend most of my time in dimension.
Mm.
I do very little with the land, except for sit on it and, weed and garden. I enjoy those sorts of things, but my spiritual practices are in the ethers, in dimensions. So sitting here and listening to you talk about the importance of the land and everything, I'm like, yeah, that actually makes sense.
Well, because
Yeah,
our body is the land, isn't it? Our body, every atom and molecule of our body comes from the land and will go back to the land. And it's a gift from the earth for us to use in any given incarnation, isn't it? So we usually treat our bodies quite badly initially, often to start with. I certainly did. And learning to really appreciate the wonder of the body, because this is the bit of the landscape that we are 100% responsible for, isn't it? This bit. So learning its needs and how to listen to the body is, and people are often think, oh, I would like to learn how to communicate with animals. Well, it's like, start with your body, because your body is an animal and you can listen to it, and that automatically heightens all of your sensitivities and your psychic abilities and all of that sort of stuff, and your capacity to communicate in dimension, as you call it, to communicate with, I mean, but you must have communicated with trees, with plants, with, have you ever?
well, I do. Yes, I do. And I absolutely communicate with animals and, things of the land, but I haven't really thought about drawing from the earth herself. I mean, when I do groups, we take our own personal grids down into earth or down into the core of earth. So I absolutely make a connection or into our bodies, but I've not actually worked directly with the earth in the same way that I do in the ethers or in dimensions.
It is, I mean, and I know that I've avoided doing this for a long time. So I worked in the ethers as well, knowing that I should is a bit of a loaded term, isn't it? But knowing it would be useful for me to focus. And it was always very easy for me to focus on the earth. And I always felt very drawn to those magnetic places in the earth. And I would find myself at places of power, and have just lovely experiences. And often, I mean, you must have sat in a place and felt the energy of the earth just rising into you. Have you ever had that experience? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Cambodia at the bottom of the female Kuan Yin. She's like 6 stories tall or something, and I sat right in the middle of her 2 feet, and it was like, wow, this is
where
this
was
is
that?
incredible. Cambodia at
Yeah.
Angkor Wat.
So that would be
Mm.
a big PowerPoint, isn't it? Where the energy is transmitted from the earth up and probably from the heavens down. Um, and that's part of our function too, is to be those transmitters, those lightning rods that can transmit earthly energies heavenward and heavenly energies earthward. And where our spine is that conducting point. And it's part of our role. Our ancestors built amazing temples that were aligned with solstices and equinoxes and caught the energy of the sun at those precise moments and transmitted it deep into the earth as the penetration of that light of the sun deep into structures in the earth. And it's the symbolism is fabulous, and then the whole energy it fertilizes it. Something happens and it ripples out across the landscape, and the whole landscape is bathed in these magical frequencies that maintain harmony and balance on the planet. And I think a lot of the disharmony maybe is because we're not doing that. We're not fulfilling our role and function of holding the balance between heaven and earth.
Mm.
In that sense, and we have to do that individually. I'm sorry, I'm distracted because I can see us on Facebook. I'm just turning that
I
off.
know, I just had to shut it and put it aside, take my glasses off.
Yeah, and so we have to balance that in ourselves, but we can also balance it in the external, or the apparently external, because the thing that's become really clear for me is that there is no such thing as inner and outer anymore, that it's all one. And if we're conscious enough, what we do in the outer world impacts our inner, and what we do in the inner impacts our outer. And a lot of people run around completely unconscious of that reality. But again, more and more are becoming aware of the fact that the world is a beautiful and amazing mirror for us, and can teach us an awful lot. Working with landscapes and nature spirits. It teaches us an awful lot too, and it's very beautiful. Anyway, I think my life is moving into that trajectory more and more. I feel myself being drawn into that field of exploration that I have, as I say, resisted a little bit. I've sort of been pulling away from it, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm right in it, and I love it. It makes me feel quite emotional in a sense, because there's such a lot of love from the landscape, in a sense. The earth. Have you ever felt that the earth really loves you?
No, I
And you
didn't.
could,
I haven't thought about it. I've only concentrated on the human and dimension. Like I've just been bringing everything into myself and working with myself. I've not really consciously worked with the land. I've not thought about working with the land. And yet we do, like just moving around is grid work, and I've
totally.
had incredible experiences with grid work, but it's not my forte, I guess.
But I bet, if you were to ask your guys, okay, where are the local power points then? Where could I go and sit and have an experience? There would be some beautiful outcrop of rock, or some gorgeous bay where the land runs into the sea and looks like a dragon or a crocodile. Because the rocks often form themselves into amazing shapes and faces, and as soon as you look at something, it's like, oh look, that's a PowerPoint, just because of the way the energy is flowing. And so for anybody, you can always sit and meditate and ask, okay, where are my local power points then? Where are the places that I could go to in my local landscape where it's going to be easier for me to interact with the consciousness of the earth? Because power points are where the energy of the earth, the chakra energy of the earth, is running close to the surface, or bubbling up strongly, and churches are often built on PowerPoints because
Yes.
they just built on what was there before them, the old religions, the pagan. And so our ancestors always knew where the energy, where they would do their ceremonies and rituals, would be in places of power. And yeah, it is. And I've also had amazing healings just from sitting in those PowerPoints, where the strong energy of the earth rises into you and just knocks stuff out of your system. So just comes into a place where there's a block or something, and just because there's so much energy rising from the earth, it just lifts it out. And it's like, well, it was a free healing just by sitting on this bench at this hilltop. And it's marvelous. It really is. It's lovely. So I recommend that to anybody, to give that a try. And somewhere like London is chock-a-block full of the most amazing sacred sites. It is extraordinary. So, and I'm sure Australia is the same, isn't it? I mean, you've got Uluru, or Ayers Rock as it used to be called, and its traditional name, and that's an amazing planetary PowerPoint, I think, isn't it? That's a major PowerPoint.
Yeah, I mean, Australia's full of them. There's this
Hmm.
fantastic man. He's 80 something, maybe nearly 90 by now. Jürgen Schmidt. He lives in Adelaide, and they sneak him in the back doors of big companies and universities and everything because of his magic that he has. And he builds these towers out of crystals and rocks or whatever, and they change. huge big areas. He set one up in a place called Elizabeth in Adelaide, which is a really ratty sort of part of Adelaide. And they watched the crime go down significantly, over the year or two. Now I've forgotten where I was going with this. Okay, so I went to one of his talks, and he was saying that there's two bays in the world, and they're very, very powerful gulfs. They're gulfs. One's in Adelaide and the other one's in France. And he said what happens with that is all the information comes and sort of settles around those bays. And Adelaide has 76 spiritual writers, or 76 authors, printed authors. And the next biggest place in the world is France,
Hmm.
which I think is about 37 people. Not France, the Gulf of Mexico. France was the third. The Gulf of Mexico has got a lot of authors in it because of that Gulf. So, there's all those sorts of things as well. I have awareness of it all. It's not my forte, I guess. It's not
And
my
I think we
forte.
all
I
have
concentrate.
a forte, don't we? All have something, a niche in a sense that is our
Yeah,
focus. Um, but knowing a bit about other niches helps in a sense, and helps to expand the awareness. Excuse me. But I think for everybody, because we came to this planet for a reason, and we came, one of those reasons is, for all of us, is to learn how to work with energy, learn how to move and manipulate energy successfully and well, and what are the prerequisites for that. And so learning, if you want to manifest, then it's important to access the energy of the earth, because that's the dense, rich, solid energy of manifestation. We can't really manifest without the energy of the earth, and because that is what brings matter. Is the word mother in, I think, German or Latin or something. Matter is mater, and so it's the feminine, and that we need that, the energy of the earth to bring things into the physical realm. And so and often people aren't successful in their manifestations or in their career and stuff, because they're blocked in terms of what they can receive from the earth. And learning to receive is a fundamental part of the manifestation process. We have to be able to receive. And often I find this when I'm working with an individual, that their relationship with their physical mother is sitting in the base chakra, and most of us have challenging relationships with our physical mother at some level or another. So that difficulty, until it's cleared, until you've done the work, it just sort of sits in the base chakra and sits in the way of your relationship with the mother, your Mother Earth, in that term. So it's difficult to receive the sustenance from the earth, whilst if you didn't receive the sustenance you wanted from your mother, it impacts your ability to receive from the earth. And clearing that opens up the channels and means that a lot more energy can flow into your life. And the heart automatically opens, because it needs that rising energy from the earth to feel safe in physical reality, safe enough to really open. And I think a lot of this stuff you do quite naturally and have done in one way or another. Just maybe that the earth isn't your focus in this lifetime.
And I was about to say that. I was about to say, surely then the earth might just be a symbol for the feminine energy or for the mother, because I haven't focused on earth, and it's not to say that I don't have incredible experiences accidentally. I'm not looking for them, but I've done it with my mother
Yeah.
while my mother and I weren't even talking. Like, I managed to do it in dimension. And then when I went and saw my mother, like, the unconditional love between us is phenomenal. So I don't know if it really matters which way you do it. You find your own pathway, and you're probably doing the same thing, perhaps.
I think because all of our relationships bring us back to the self, don't they? And so everything can be seen as that mirror, so that the earth represents the feminine, but she is also her own a being in her own right, a conscious, living, breathing, intelligent being in her own right that will interact with you. And that interaction, because she's a big, she's a large body of energy and intelligence, and she hosts the game that we're playing. You know, she said, "Yeah, okay, play this on my body then." I'm hosting. She's hosting the experiment that we're all engaged in, and
It's a woman on the planet.
mm,
Every woman on the planet has been playing the same game. Play the game on my body. I will host this.
yeah, yeah, and you know, as we become more and more conscious about the impact we have on other people's bodies or other bodies, then we start to take responsibility for our actions. And it starts, you know, if you're worried about the pollution of the environment, then you have to start with how you're polluting your own environment, you know, and taking care of your own bit of the landscape. And that's where it starts, because each of us as an energy field and body is a part of the energetic economy of the planet, in a sense, and that becomes our contribution. So if we're really polluting ourselves with what we eat and drink and with what we think and watch and all the rest of it, then that becomes our contribution. And that energetic pollution that we give to the collective becomes the foundation for planetary pollution, because we're not taking responsibility for all of that. It all happens on the macro and the micro and the macro levels. But this is where we can do our most beneficial work initially, is in our own system, isn't it? To clean up our act at every level here, and then it starts to have a bigger impact externally.
Regardless of what external symbology we've used. I mean, whether it's earth or a relationship or an addiction or whatever,
Yeah.
everything that's brought into itself. I mean, if we're everything and we're oneness and we're God itself, all of these external things, including earth, perhaps, are just symbols of us.
Yeah, and that's that weird place, isn't it? Which I haven't quite got my head around. Yes, they are symbolic, but they also have their own validity and reality and intelligence too. You know, but so it is at one
Create
level a
with them.
symbol. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
they're our co-creators, helping us all get to the same place. Hey.
which is why learning to live with love and respect makes everything flow much more smoothly, doesn't it? It just I was ever since I started this, I've always been told, you know, when I go into meditation and it was like, oh, what should I, what are we doing? What should I do? What should I focus on? It was always open your heart, open your heart, open your heart. And it still is that. When I was climbing the hill, I was sat down at the top of the hill yesterday and I was thinking, oh, what should I focus on? And immediately it said, open your heart. It's like, okay, it always starts with that, because opening the heart just, it sets up a flow that lubricates everything, that just enables everything else to happen with so much more ease and grace, I think. And it's just oops, it's just yeah, very simple. So that's my week. How's
Sounds
yours?
like a great.
It is, it's lovely.
Exactly the same, I think, but different symbology.
Yeah.
Exactly the same symbols, that's all.
So what are you being initiated into then?
Um, I think what I've been initiated into, I've is little steps and stages of completely and utterly merging my masculine and feminine. Um, in different ways. In different ways. Yesterday, in one of the groups, the frequency of Mother Goddess and Father God came in and just permeated the entire group. both of the groups actually, that was like, wow, here is the frequency. I mean, I just lit up in all this white gold and disappeared. In fact, all of us did. Everyone sort of, shared, we've just gone into this room, we've just gone here or whatever, and then everyone was just silent. At the end, everyone was gone, I just disappeared. It was so deep, I disappeared. And what else did I do? I think, I was aware all week of this frequency of penetration coming, the impending penetration of the masculine. I'm like, oh, this could be interesting. What's this going to look like? And then when it finally came, it it wanted to come in, and I could feel it trying to come in with me, but I could feel that I was blocking it. And so I had to discover, why don't I want this masculine energy to penetrate me? Because I had the masculine really come in very, very strongly about 6 weeks ago, and it felt like it was surrounding me, like I was being hugged, like a big bear hug. And it's been sitting in that for 6 weeks, really enjoying that. And now it wanted to actually come invade my entire field. Invade, it was how I felt at the time. And my higher self said to me, why aren't you letting it in? Why are you worried about letting your own masculine energy come into you? And I realized that I didn't want it to. I didn't mind it being around me, holding me, but I didn't want it to come in because I was scared it would take over me. I knew that, the masculine and feminine are moving into this unified equality. And I was really worried about it coming in case I lost myself, or my voice was gone, or I was silenced, or I became a shadow or small. So I had to let that go. And as soon as I did, it just came in, and it was absolutely spectacular, absolutely phenomenal. And I just felt so different after that happened yesterday morning. Really different. Really different. Like I'm having experiences of being able to look at somebody. It's okay, I'm not doing it to you now. Not that I'm in control of it either, but looking straight past the face and seeing into the soul, and that other person being able to see into your soul. And that's an incredible experience. So yeah, I really feel like the feminine and the masculine is really merged as one.
That's amazing, isn't it? And so that
And that's
feeling, sorry?
and that's probably what you did via Earth. If
I
you see
think
the
that's
Earth as a
what I'm having. But I've also been working with the masculine energy of the earth in terms of Pan and the Green Man. And we tend to think of the earth as purely feminine. But of course, because there have to be masculine and feminine energies for creation. That's just the law, in a sense, isn't it? That it has to be both the blending of masculine and feminine. And we've tended to discount the masculine energies of the earth. And so Pan and the Green Man are aspects of the masculine that I worked with last week. So it's been happening, this meeting and merging with different aspects of these energies in this way, the masculine. And I did a teleconference on connecting and integrating the male energy of the earth, which you commented that and said that some women had talked about that, of experiencing that level of penetration of the male energy in a way. And I think it becomes easier because a lot of people still have that you had that some anxiety, some trepidation about losing yourself to the masculine, even though it was your masculine. And this too, Pan represents virility and the power of spring, of bringing things back into blossom. So it's a strong, if you think of things growing and pushing their way through the soil, it's a thrusting energy, in a sense. It is an energy of penetration. And a lot of images of Pan, he has a really large phallus and he is fucking. There are lots of images of that. But Pan was made into the archetypal devil by the Christian church. And there's a scar in our psyche around that, because the church did such a phenomenal job in disconnecting us from these natural sources of wisdom and power, and making us frightened of them. And so collectively, I think we're opening up all of those places in us again and reconnecting deep within ourselves, but also deep within the landscape, deep within the body of the earth, and realizing that, yeah, it's one and the same thing.
I don't think penetration is thrusting. I think that we've been taught to believe that that's what penetration should be.
You're
But I
right.
don't,
Yeah.
it wasn't a thrusting sort of, penetration can be done, this much at a time.
Mm.
And that can often be more exquisite than wham bam, thank you, ma'am, or that thrusting type energy. Really soft, gentle, full penetration is not thrusting. It felt really soft and gentle, and it felt safe and secure and comforting and loving. And if I looked at the masculine energy that was penetrating, he almost had that well, the symbology was like he'd laid his head down on her lap. It was a total surrender of both of them, both parts coming together.
And I was really struck by you saying that the capacity to look deep into another soul and have them look deep into you. And that means that there is total trust, isn't it? That you have trust enough to let go of all of the barriers and all of the defenses, and to be soul naked in that sense, huh?
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
again,
that's what's coming. That's what's
yeah,
happening at the moment.
so that's profound. And I mean, maybe, what I'm doing in my experience with the earth, they seem to be following similar tracks, but they're just different expressions and different explorations of the same thing, huh? But very exciting. I'm finding it very exciting. So
Yeah, it is. It's incredible what we're currently doing, what we're going
mm,
through. Incredible, truly incredible. And I love it, everyone seems to be aware of it too. Like everyone seems to be aware of it. You just have to open Facebook, and every second or third post is, it's happened, we're there, we've done it. The mother and father, have merged as one. Not to say that they never were, but we'd forgotten.
yeah.
We had to break down programs so we could become aware of it. It looks like they're coming back in together, but it was our perceptions, programs, blockages, implants, whatever, that was stopping
Well,
us from seeing the
and there are
true power.
dimensions of ourself that have always stayed in the unified state, and we call that our higher self. And that bit tries, sometimes with a huge amount of patience, to guide and lead and persuade and cajole sometimes. And that aspect of us is always in the unified state, but we have separated ourselves out to have the experience of density. And now it does seem that all of those veils that lie between us and the unified state are falling away. And that's what we're talking about with all of these unions, is the unified state, isn't it? The unified field, the unity
The
consciousness.
unified state is happening from within. We're
Mm.
actually doing that from last week in the groups. We had everybody, you were there in one of them, merge their genitals with the opposite gender genitals and lock that in, so we become our own lock and key and create our own, I remember it now, microcosmic orbit.
Perfect.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Microcosmic orbit within ourselves. So what happens when you bring two whole and complete people in that have their own masculine and their own feminine, and now they're coming together with somebody else who also has that? You pretty much got four beings making love or having a meeting, or you know, everyone says, well, the masculine leads, and I'm now saying Yeah, the masculine does. My masculine and your masculine, plus your feminine and my feminine, are going to have a meeting about this, and we're all going to agree.
And as you're speaking, I'm just have that image of the egg that splits into four. You know, once it's fertilized, it splits first into two and then into four, and that's the process, isn't it?
Yep. And then when we start listening to all four of those voices, then they start practicing, they start merging, and they become one. And that's the voice of the golden child, or the energy, the frequency of the golden child. The feminine principle and the masculine principle merged as one create a third energy, which is the golden child, which is us. You know, we've activated our inner feminine, our inner masculine. So then we become the golden child. And I think what we're in at the moment is a practice period, probably for the next, 3 or 4 weeks. And then
Up to
we're
the
going to
solstice, I
birth.
think the solstice is going to be an extraordinary point of birth, isn't it? I mean, I love
Yeah.
the winter
The
solstice.
Trinity energy. The Trinity energy. And a lot of people have an experience this, and I did as well, of the Magdalene or Jesus type energy. You know, I think this is part of stepping, I don't think, this is part of stepping into our Christ consciousness
Mm.
at the same time. And I believe that that's going to be really quite prevalent by the solstice, definitely by Christmas, by the 25th of December.
The solstice is
Truly.
often, I experience the solstice as quite an explosion of energy. And then we have that lovely period after the solstice where everything is in a state of flux for a while then. And a lot of the planet is sort of in holiday mode. So the energy shifts and then it sort of solidifies itself and starts to crystallize a bit from Christmas onwards, from the 25th.
So the 25th of December is a 44 Master Day.
Hmm.
It's a power day as it is. Just that's a very powerful period. So I don't know when I think the solstice here in Australia is on the 23rd. So the frequency will probably come in on the 23rd, and it'll take us a couple of days to catch up with that. And, collectively it'll be
No, it
anchored and
must be on
embodied.
the
But
because the solstice is something like, oh, I've got it in my diary. I think it's 3:27 in the morning on Friday the 22nd here in the UK, because I'll be running a teleconference at that time. So if you're 6 hours ahead, it's no 8 hours ahead. Yeah, are you 8 hours ahead? What time is it now for you?
nearly 9 o'clock.
So it's 11. So you're 10 hours ahead. So if it's 3:27 in the morning here, yeah, 3:27 a.m. is the solstice on Friday the 22nd. So it'll be 10 hours later than that. So it'll be 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the afternoon for you is the
23rd. No, the 22nd. Oh, I
22nd.
don't know. Around that time, I think that's what we're doing. We're in
Yeah.
a practice period now. The feminine and masculine have just merged. They're starting to learn to communicate with each other to build up the strength of that golden child, that new voice, a new way of thinking, that new frequency that we're all going to be operating from. And what does it look like? Well, it's love plus respect, reverence, compassion, self-accountability, all of it, authenticity, transparency. That we've all been trying to focus on love, forgetting that all these, people that we love, we treat worse than people that are, complete strangers. We've got respect for them, or we might tell them the truth. All of that is coming together. This is the new frequency of love where all of it exists at once.
Yeah.
And our that merged voice is going to teach us that, because we've been operating on battle of the sexes, didn't even know it was internal. We didn't even know that for so long. We just blamed the external opposite genders most of the time. But yeah, really, really exciting things happening at the moment, even, through to the end of the year.
Yeah, I think the solstice is they're always extraordinary, actually, the solstice energies. I love them. And all solstice and equinox, but the winter solstice is always the December solstice, I should say. It's winter for us in the northern hemisphere. But your summer solstice, huh? And I love how the earth, that balance. It's like, so the depth of winter for us, the height of summer for you, and at the equinox there's this amazing balance of equal hours of light and dark on the whole planet. But the planet is always expressing this balance because it's a whole unified field, and what we make of it is what we make of it. But the planet is always reminding us, the planet and its relationship with the sun is always reminding us of the possibility of balance, because that relationship is always in balance. It's always expressing, it's always in motion, and it's always fluid, but it's always balanced. And I love how we can help ourselves come back to balance by anchoring in those bigger relationships, which is what our ancestors did. I think they tracked the movements of the heavens and the solstice and the equinoxes and built temples and stuff to hold the balance on the planet of these energies. And again, we've moved away from that to a large extent, and I think now we're coming back to it much more. But it's really beautiful. You talk about the golden child, and for me that is reflected in this river of gold that I was pushed into 10 or 12 years ago, and that has come back surface very strongly in me. And everywhere I look now, I'm meeting gold as an inner and an outer experience, the how we've corrupted ourselves for gold or money, and lost touch with the inner gold. And then as I was reading about this walk I was doing yesterday, and the road, the walk along the top of the mountain range is called the Golden Way, and it just made me laugh that I was walking this golden path along the top of these sacred hills. And I just thought, yeah, it all falls into place, doesn't it? In a lot of ways, it's the inner really mirrors the outer, and vice versa. It's quite it's magical, isn't it? It is a magical flow and a magical creation that we're all engaged in. Should we look and see if there are any questions?
Yes. Yes, we should. What have we got?
If you have any questions about what we're chattering on about, please just send them in. Michelle's currently reading the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying.
Hello, Mick Rogers in Adelaide.
Well, don't fuck with the feng shui, yeah? Yeah, don't mess with the energy, yeah. Or the energy will mess with you.
Anna.
Well, no question.
Anna's like dousing on the land, Morgan. No. No, I like to wee on it when I can, though. But no, I don't know. I don't know how to douse. But I do like to, if I go somewhere and I can find a hidey place, I make a point of weeing there. That would be like dousing, wouldn't
Why
it?
then? Why do you like to do that?
That question? Are you
No, I'm just
struggling
trying
with
to
that
find out why. I mean, I'd like to pee on the land too, and I think there's a connection. It's an act of connection in a sense to consciously pee in a place, because you're returning something to the land. That's how I feel about it. Is that how it is for you, or is there something different?
No,
Have you
I
ever
think
thought?
but for me, I feel like, oh, yes, I've left my DNA there. Yes, I've left my DNA there. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know fully. It just feels very important to do. And
Well,
I know I'm not.
next time you're doing it,
Yeah, what?
have a think. Have a think. Just have a feel into what you're doing.
I think it's a few things. I think it's the naughtiness of it. I like doing naughty things every now and again. I do feel like I do. I go to a lot of house sitting. God, I hope none of my house sitters are listening to this. I
You're peeing
always
all over the garden.
no, not all, just once, just once. And I just feel like a part of me's been left there and a part of me's been left there. And I don't know, maybe some people do that with their toenails or whatever, but I like to be somewhere. I don't know. It's a weird thing, isn't it?
But
No,
and
I don't know how.
it's a scent thing as well in terms of, you know, animals and scent. And if you have a problem with foxes or badgers, it's meant to be more effective for men to pee on the boundaries, so it alerts the animals to a territorial thing, you know, because that's how animals operate, and we are an
I'm
animal.
not doing it
So
for that. I don't go sniffing around or anything. It's I don't know what it is. It's
no,
no
I'm just
one's
saying
watching. I can tell.
that's another element to it, is about a territorial thing, in terms that we're literally leaving our scent, and and that's part of probably our animal heritage, our deep animal instinct, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. No, I don't know how to douse, but I don't know what I'd be dousing for anyway. I guess you douse for water or something.
Well, you can douse for anything, can't you? Douse for gold, or for opals, or for water, uh, or energy. You know, there are these lovely books where people have doused some of the big lines of energy running across the planet, and they find, you know, one of my favorite books is called the Sun and the Serpent, by Hamish Miller and Paul Broadhurst, and they doused the Michael and Mary line, which flows across the southeast of, or the south of England, from Cornwall through to Norfolk. And what they found, much to their surprise, was that it's actually two currents of energy, one feminine, one masculine, and the places those currents of energy cross over become the big power points. So where those energies meet and fertilize, there's a big power point. And they even doused the pattern of energy that happens when the masculine and feminine lines of energy meet. And it's a star pattern that is formed in the landscape when the masculine and feminine lines of energy meet. And in places like Avebury, they meet 3 times, which makes a really big landscape temple, a huge ancient landscape temple that stretches over miles. And the same in Glastonbury. There are 3 meeting points very close together, which make for a really extraordinarily powerful landscape. And so it's sort of quite fascinating in a sense. But you can feel, if you get used to the energies, then if you stand on a male line of energy or a female line of energy, you can feel the subtle difference in the energy between what they termed the Michael. They termed it the Michael line because there are a lot of churches dedicated to Michael on that line, and the Mary line, the opposite is true. There are a lot of churches dedicated to Mary on the feminine line. So again, our ancestors sort of had some understanding of that, even if it was deeply unconscious. We are impacted by these energies all the time, because we never have been separate from them. And I think, well, this time is very exciting because we're becoming conscious of it all again. Whether it's, you know, the inner merging of masculine and feminine, or the outer, apparently outer, because there is no such thing. So
There's some great comments here. I'm not a lone weirdo. There's a lot of women on here admitting to peeing on the land. And Denise said, and she's a professional with this whole earth stuff, she said, we've got light codes and special codes in our pee. Seriously. So, yep. It's a very normal
it's,
thing to do for women too.
yeah, it's the golden flow, isn't it? There we go.
Golden flow, that's it, yeah. Or
Yeah.
golden trickle, whatever. So I've got
Marvelous.
big news. I've got some really big news here. I understand that next Thursday, when we meet again, is I think
Mhm.
I think it is on the, yeah, somebody's 60th birthday
Yeah, I
on
wonder
the
who that.
7th of
Yeah.
December.
On the 7th of December, next Thursday, a week today. It is indeed my 60th birthday, huh? That's not particularly big
Yeah.
news. I'm surprised to make it this far, to be honest. But and it's like, well, how did that happen? Because inside, I feel an excited child most of the time. And I've always had that question: when are you going to grow up? When are you going to become an adult? And I've stopped asking that question now because I realize it's never going to happen. I'm never going to feel. I used to look at my parents, and they seemed so adult, you know. And I think times were different. My mother was desperately unhappy to hit 40. You know, it was a tragedy in her eyes that she became 40, and
Oh,
our whole relationship with the aging process is different, isn't it? But I realize I'm never going to feel how they felt about. Also, I'm not a parent, and parenting changes, I think, your relationship with time in a sense, or it makes you responsible, doesn't it? Because you are literally responsible for another life. So it pushes you into a whole different
no,
lifestyle.
I've got childish.
You
I've
are
got
very
two kids.
childlike. No, not childish, but childlike. You have a very childlike innocence, huh? um, that I know, even in the sleaziest, nastiest places that I used to go to, I always felt very innocent. No matter what I was getting up to and what drugs I was taking and all the things I was doing, the sex I was having, I always felt a level of innocence in me that was sort of untouchable by all of that, you know. And I think that level of innocence protected me somehow. It always stopped me going too far. In a sense, I was always pulled out of situations before things got nasty, or you know, whatever. It was just there was a level of uh, of protection because I wasn't looking after myself. I wasn't protecting myself. You know, I didn't have whatever was needed to set good boundaries and have respect for myself. I didn't have any of that, and so there was this other part that was doing that work to an extent,
So there's a
anyway.
few comments here about having an online party next week, but I've got another rumor that I've heard too that you might be able to confirm. I heard that when you turn 60, you know, at your butt, and you've got that like one crease. And if you're suntan, there's always like a white line when you bend over.
Yeah,
I've heard that you get about 4 or 5 or 6 creases. Like once you turn 60 and your butt just drops and hangs down, it's
I'm
like
having to do a lot of
elephant.
I'm having to do a lot of gluteal exercises at the moment because my osteopath, um, because I have this ongoing hip problem, which and it's much better than it was, and it's from well, there are a couple of things it's from, but it's from an injury a long time ago, and my osteopath is having me do lots of butt exercises to strengthen my gluteus muscles. So I'm hoping I won't have like triple or quadruple creases. But you never know. I'll
Like
show you
elephant.
next week. I'll moon you next week, or maybe I'll post a
One,
photograph. I won't moon you next week, actually.
you can leave your undies on and show us. We won't, we'll go without the moon and we'll just have a look at how many creases are there.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah.
You can put bathers on.
Hmm?
You can put your bathers on.
I just wear shorts. You won't see anything. I just wear bathing shorts. Um, so yeah, it is my 60th birthday next week, and that's yeah. That so this weekend I start the celebrations by meeting. I'm driving up to London tomorrow from here and meeting my two sisters. I have two sisters and a niece. That's my immediate family. And we're going to see ABBA. They're taking me to see ABBA, and then we're going out for a meal on the Saturday as well. So that starts the celebrations, and then I've got a birthday supper next week for a bunch of friends. So it'll be nice. And I'm hoping I've only swum once on my birthday because the weather often isn't conducive, but I'm hoping to get a swim on my birthday as well, which will be nice. Um, yeah, but I'm not a big thing on, it doesn't sort of, it never means much to me, birthdays. It doesn't, I would quite happily not do anything because it doesn't, but there's a pressure from other people. Oh, you're 60, you've got to do something. And I don't, because I don't drink, I'm not a party person as such. So yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, huh?
Oh, was that a secret?
Not particularly. No, I think my birth date is on my Facebook thing, so it comes up anyway. But yeah.
We're going to get like triple the amount of people just for the creases, I think. You and your babies and the creases.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. So,
Yeah, that's
teacher
you're
of,
asking for an online party.
oh, you're doing the meditation next week, so it'll be up to you, huh? But a teacher of mine used to say, Leslie Temple Thurston, she used to say that so when at your birthday and the stars are in roughly the same place that they were at the time of your birth, that's a really auspicious time. It's like the heavens smile on you and you get a lovely download. And 6 months later, when the heavens are exactly opposite your birth sign or whatever, it's in the opposite side of the heaven. It's an inauspicious time. You might meet challenges at that 6 month time just because the stars are or the planets are opposite where they were at your birth. And I always feel that sense of benevolence around my birthday, but I always tie it into Christmas as well because December always feels like a lovely benevolent month. I think we're starting to move into the solstice energies. I always used to love Christmas, not because of the Christian story, just because of the,
Presents.
well, there was that, but it also, I realized there's a feeling that I experience around the Christmas season, which is an energetic thing, I think. And it does open people's hearts a bit more. Do you have that sense or
No.
no? I think people I think there's something that happens around the Christmas. We've called it Christmas, it's. I think it's a solstice thing. I think it's an energetic thing, and that's why they made
Yeah,
Christmas
I get
then.
it when I think about the solstice. Christmas, I gave up, gosh, how old's Jordan? About 6 years ago. When I had kids, it was a huge, big thing. And as soon as like they moved out of home, it's like, I'm done with that stuff. I'm done. Like that's enough. And really felt quite detached from, Mother's Day, Christmas, Easter, all that sort of stuff. And gosh, it felt fabulous because I think for most women, Christmas means
A lot
days, if
of
not
work.
weeks. It's just so much work, and you are putting on a show for the whole family. Everyone's got to have their presents and reindeer poo that I used to make, and just cooking that, I was so happy to be done with it. But yeah, I'm very excited about the solstice. I'm more excited about that. And my mother will be here. She's arriving in a few days, so she's going to be here for 3 weeks. And both of us said, we're not cooking, are we? No, there's not even a stove in this house, so we're good.
Cool, cool. Yeah, we don't. I always have a. I don't do a family Christmas. I always spend Christmas with friends, and we. It's not. We meditate but we do cook. And I always think it's the. That
Meditate on Christmas
solstice.
Day.
Sorry.
Meditate on Christmas Day.
Yeah, we always meditate together. Um, but I meditate most days, don't you? Do you meditate most days? Yeah,
Absolutely. Two or three
yeah.
times a day, but I can't imagine doing it like just before Christmas lunch or after or something. That's very cool.
Yeah, and what I've taken to doing, like I always do a solstice and equinox teleconference at the time of the solstice of the actual time of the event. So this morning it'll be the middle of the night, 3:27 in the morning, UK time. And it's cool because I was asked to do it years ago. And, before the solstices and equinoxes were really becoming popular again. And, and I agreed, and it's become a lovely. I thought, oh God, it's going to be a pain in the ass to get up in the middle of the night. It's not always in the middle of the night, um, but it's actually a lovely thing to wake up, half an hour before, set the alarm, get up, do my thing, and we're usually online together for an hour, and then just to acknowledge, because I think our ancestors built temples in locations, power points on the planet for energetic reasons. And we don't do that, but we create temples in the ethers, by coming together around an intention and setting an energy field. And that's been shown to me that that's how we do it in this day and age. Through the use of technology, we build energetic temples that hold and amplify energy in just the way that our ancestors built temples to hold and amplify energy. We do the same thing. And I love that. I think that's a really beautiful thing. But also over the new year, for the past maybe 4 years, I've run a New Year retreat, because a lot of people don't know what to do with themselves at New Year, and don't want to do the party thing. And so I do a New Year's retreat over a couple of days, meditations and stuff like that, and online gatherings. And that's usually a very popular thing too. So I'll do that again this year. And it's sort of on a weekend, I think, sort of close to a weekend anyway, so it becomes easier. But yeah, it's nice.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so let's have one more quick scanning through here. It's almost time for you to do a meditation. Do you know what you're doing? Yes, you do.
Sort of. And look, I've got this there are these little bits of Welsh quartz, which isn't. I took it from the hill yesterday. It was in a river, a little stream coming down the hill, and it often I work with stones when I'm working with individuals, or a stone will ask to be included in a session, and I just hold a stone. Have I got one here? No. To the camera, so that the individual can see the stone, but also then I just transfer energy or transmit energy through the stone into their field, and it has amazing impacts. And so this stone is a little bit of Welsh quartz, from a sacred landscape not far from here. It reminds me of a dragon's tooth, actually, these little chips of quartz. And so we work a little bit with that. It's got some flashes of mica on it, so it's got lovely little bits of silver. And we're going to work with the landscape angels, and Pan and Merlin, and see if it's going to be what I'm doing on my Sunday teleconference. How did your Sunday call go last week? Was that a big event?
Reasonably, yeah. There was 45 people. I think we had 34 in attendance. Yeah, it was very good. It was really good. Yeah, I think it always is. When you get lots of people and we're all working on that one thing, you've got all these fractals of people working on, their part of it, and it becomes everything that's done becomes available for everyone in the group. So it's like really powered up. But yeah, it was lovely. I really enjoyed it.
Cool. So this Sunday, I'm going to do a bigger version of what we're doing today, because it'll be about landscape initiation, being initiated back into the landscape, and or back into relationship with the landscape. And so yeah, we're going to touch into that for just a few minutes, and see how that goes. Cool.
Fantastic. I look forward to that. Should be interesting.
Yeah.
I had a lady ring me yesterday, you know, the one that we did last week. It was only the last 5 minutes of joining the genitals,
Yeah. Yeah.
locking them in and bringing it back in. 79 years old. She's probably going to watch this. I won't say her name. And she said to me that just in that, like that last 5 minutes, just that bit, she said, I can't believe it. I haven't felt like this for years. And she said, I actually felt horny. And I said to her, I know, David was the same. And some of the older ladies in the group said the same thing.
No, I was
So,
saying it didn't like I was having a lot of energy move, but it didn't feel horny. You know, it didn't feel like, oh, I need
no,
to
but
go.
you had,
But
you had
yeah,
something.
yeah. And in your last week's meditation, and that's what I did. I did a teleconference on the back of what happened in your last week's meditation, because I had this experience of Pan standing there as the devil. And as I looked at him, I realized it was an image, not the Pan that I know from the landscape, but it was the Christian church. We projected our idea of the devil and evil onto the nature god Pan. And Pan represents a deep sexual archetype in a sense. He represents sexuality and virility and our deep connection with nature. And I realized that he was showing me, or my guides were showing me, that there was this scar in our collective psyche around that deep natural male energy. And that was what we did last week on the back of your meditation. So thank you very much for that, because it was well, it all feeds into the same, in the sense we're all working on the same thing, aren't we? Very much. So yeah.
Yeah.
So this too is another part of this process. Are we doing this? Am I doing this now, or is there anything else that wants to be said? No other questions? No, nothing else.
Oh, Hannah says, what does it mean to merge with the landscape?
Well, it's the same as merging with anything else, is that my experience is that I lose my sense of self as David. I'm aware of myself as a field, in a sense, but it's like losing boundaries. So there's no me and the rocks I was sitting on. I think the process probably involves my field literally merging with that bit of the landscape and feeling totally at one with it. That's how I felt, and it only lasted, maybe 2 minutes or something, and I was really aware of it and thinking to myself, okay, don't get caught up in your thoughts, because you lose this feeling, because it was a feeling that where there were no thoughts. It was just the experience, just the feeling, the felt sense of, oh, I'm one with these rocks. But as I say, it didn't last particularly long, but it was a very touching moment. But you can have that merging feeling with a cat, with your dog, or with a tree, or with your partner, or yeah, or with a guide, or Jesus, or that it's about dissolving boundaries, I think, is yeah. Okay, should we dive into this?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Lovely as always to connect with you, and thank you for anybody that's made it this far. Thank you for sticking with us. And yeah, this is going to be just a simple connection with the landscape. And as I say, I'll do a bigger version of this on Sunday. And it's not that you need me or anybody else to do this for you or with you. You can just literally go and hang out in the landscape, and the landscape will do it. But it's useful to call upon the support of the non-physical realms always, I think, because they always do the work, not us. It's always we just need to show up, really, and the work happens because we've shown up and become available. So this little bit of quartz, I'm just going to hold from a river in a sacred landscape, and I'm just going to work. This acts as a symbol connecting us back to that sacred landscape. But as I say, all landscapes are sacred, and you may want to focus on the landscape that you know close to where you are, or a landscape you visited. It doesn't really matter. So just closing your eyes and dropping your focus deep inside, allowing the breath to pull you into your inner landscape, and recognizing the breath and our focus of awareness become a force that changes whatever they touch. So allow the breath to open you up, soften tension, opening up the spine and the nervous system, imagining literally the nervous system unfurling itself, expanding out into the energy field, opening up your capacity to sense, to be sensitive, going deeper into the body. Take a few moments to breathe through the heart, opening, unfolding all of the dimensions of the heart. And there are many, many dimensions available to us through the heart. It seems like an infinite portal. So allow your heart field to open and engulf you, so that you sit in the field of energy that emerges from deep within your own heart. Not your energy, but universal flow. And drop deeper and deeper into your body, recognizing this body that you inhabit as a gift from the earth. Every element, every atom has come from the earth through the food we eat, through what we consume to build our form. And it will return to the earth when we are done with it. So just softly become aware of any ways in which you have claimed ownership of this body. And maybe consider the possibility that you can give up that ownership. It's not yours, it's on loan. It could be a partnership rather than an ownership. And you can allow the earth to be a co-partner with the intelligence of this body. So I'm drawing upon the energy of the sacred landscape I was in yesterday, a place of power called the Preseli Hills. But you may focus on a local sacred landscape for you, or a place you have visited, and just ask that energy come to you, immerse you in its embrace. So we invite Merlin, who is sacred in many traditions, an element of many, many wisdom traditions, and Pan, the nature god Pan, who be guides for us in this. And the landscape angels, vast beings that overlight large areas of the planet. Humanity is moving back into a deeper communion with the planet, a relationship we once shared and that we have moved away from to experience separation in all of its myriad ways. Now we remember that there is no separation. And so we invite possibility of being initiated back into deep communion and relationship with the earth, with the huge flows of energy that course through the earth, with the waters, with the veins of gold and silver and metals, and the huge beds of crystals and gems in all of their colors. With the huge wisdom and love that beats deep in the heart of the earth. Recognize that she knows you as the one that chose to incarnate, to have this experience, as much as she knows all of the incarnations you've had. And she can help you strengthen your awareness of the one, the one that you are, that has worn many faces and many bodies. She holds your records, the details of all of your incarnations on this planet are held by her as well as by us. And see if you can allow yourself to merge with your sacred landscape, the place you have chosen to remember or visualize, or perhaps meet with the nature spirits there. In your heart field. If you want, you can ask for a deeper, conscious relationship with the earth and all of her realms. The plants, the animals, the crystals, the metals, the waters, the winds. just remember that this body you inhabit is an animal with instincts and awarenesses and sensitivities that, again, we have separated out from. The field of intelligence of the body knows where the energy of the earth flows. It can guide you. Listen to your body. It is the little bit of the earth that you are responsible for. Allow it to tell you what it is you need to know. Okay. So, thank you very much. Lots of love to you all, and we'll see you same time next week, huh? Have you got something flying around your home?
Yeah, I've been having this major battle with a lizard for the last few days. I was sitting here yesterday, my hands are on the desk, I'm talking to someone, and next thing this lizard ran up across the back of the shed, over my shoulder and straight over my hand, and it keeps screaming. You can hear it making funny noises while we've been trying to do this today.
So lizards are dragon energy, aren't they? That's it.
An
That's the
arsehole.
dragon.
No, I'm sorry, it's not a dragon, it's an arsehole. It crawled straight down my arm, and it's very naughty.
It's the dragons
It
coming to
wants
pay a visit, huh?
to. Thank you, David. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
See you
And
next
thank
week.
you, everyone, for joining us
Yeah.
today.
Okay. Lots of love, huh? Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.